Okay, we are going to start. Good evening, everyone. My name is NorthCrossroad, and I'll be your teacher today. Please join class.uni chat channel if you haven't already. First, couple of rules during the class. During the lecture part, I will be the one who will do the talking, so please do not try to speak and mumble. If you have any questions, it's totally fine. Ask them in class.uni chat channel. From time to time, I will stop my lecture and will try to answer your questions. Robert Mains, you are keying up. Please stop it. So, after the lecture part will be finished, we will have a short Q&A session where you can ask any questions on Mumble, and I'll try to answer them. If you have some pretty big questions like check out my fit or anything substantial, please do not ask them during the class, but keep them to the end of the class, to the Q&A part. Besides that, no real restrictions. You are free to chat in class.uni if you want. And we will start. So, who am I and why I'm teaching this class? As I said, my name is NorthCrossroad, and I'm a teacher in EVE University and also one of few EVE University solo PvP pilots. I do a lot of small ship PvP in different ships, frigates, T1 frigates, assault frigates, and I include CovOps frigates into this list because CovOps are great for solo PvP, and about this we will talk with you today. So, as you know, usually CovOps ships, frigates are considered, their role in PvP is non-existent. Basically, you use them to scout, warp cloaked, and basically give warp ins to the fleet, etc. Sometimes you use them for probing of your targets, and that's their main use. But for some strange reason, CCP, when implemented them, actually gave all these frigates a weapon bonus built into their hulls. I would ask someone who can link different ships and modules in class.uni chat channel to XUP, who would be willing to do it during the whole class. XUP, please now. Anyone? Because it will slow down the class since I will have to do it myself. All you need to do is when I will be speaking about some module or ship, you will need to link them in class.uni chat channel. So please put an X if you can do it and willing to do it during this class.
Somebody already has.
Okay, since no one is willing to, I'll have to do it myself.
Someone's already done it. Can you not see the classroom?
Seems like I do not see the class.uni chat channel updating for the moment. Just a second. Let me rejoin it. Okay, my Eve decided to close itself. Just 1 minute. I will be rejoining Eve. Okay, so thank you guys, whoever volunteered. I will start and, well, join channel in a moment. So, if you check bonuses, for example, on Helios, on a ship, you will see that in bonuses, besides, CPU reduced for cloaking device, bonus to scan strength, you will also see two bonuses. One for damage per level, and second one is for drone damage per level, which basically means that this ship is not that useless in theory in PvP. But usually these frigates have a lot of CPU, but do not have a lot of power grid, so it often is a bit of a problem to fit them with decent tank. But all of these ships from all four races have a lot of mid slots, which means that either they use them for some support role, or they can use them for utility and technical modules. So each ship, each CovOps can field not less than 4 mid slots. Basically, it means that it can fit afterburner, scram, web, and possibly either a second web or, for example, tracking disruptor. So a lot of things, more than usual frigate can, basically. Okay, okay, yeah, you see me? And great. So, because I just have to see your questions in channel. So, that's why eventually someone decided to try it, basically, to fit CovOps with as a totally combat PvP frigate, as solo PvP frigate, and it did really worked out very well, because this ship has a lot of mid slots, it has a weapon bonus, and usually it has at least decent amount of hit points, so it could work in theory, and it did work pretty well. So typical combat CovOps would fit in high slots guns, and if possible CovOps cloak. In mid slots it would be afterburner, scram web plus second web and tracking disruptor, depending on the number of mid slots. And in low slots it would be damage control usually, and possibly damage module or some auxiliary module to boost the power grid of the combat CovOps. The problem is with high slots. Not all ships from CovOps line has enough high slots to actually fit a cloak. For example, Helios, please link that in class. Helios cannot fit a cloak if it wants to be fitted as a combat ship, because it has only 2 high slots, and both slots are occupied with 2 guns. But for example, Buzzard, which is Caldari one, has 3 high slots and only 2 launchers hardpoints, so it can fit basically 2 rocket launchers, and in the 3rd slot it can easily fit a CovOps cloak, so it can warp cloaked and it can fight, which is kinda nice. As you can see, different frigates have different weapon bonuses. Like Helios has a bonus to hybrid weaponry, and buzzards have bonus to rockets and missiles. So basically, depending on a ship, each race CovOps has, well, more or less chances to win a solo fight against another frigate. I would say that the best one from all frigates is, from all CovOps frigates, is a Helios, because it has a nice bonus to damage. It has 5 mid slots, which allow it to fit 2 webs and a tracking disruptor. And well, at the same time, it has, well, more or less okayish tank. Mostly I do fly, if I am flying combat CovOps, mostly I do fly Helios. If you've watched YouTube videos that I've linked and which is in the class thread, you'll notice that people are flying other combat CovOpses, and it's totally fine. It just comparing to others, not they are that worse, but Helios is a bit better, because, well, for example, Buzzard can fit a cloak at the same time, but it has a lot less DPS with its rockets, so it's kinda a bit of a problem. Though again, warping cloaked can be a very crucial, so you can play 2 roles at the same time. You can be well, cloaky eyes for your fleet or for your gang, and if you'll see like a solo T1 frigate like a Rifter, you can bait him and kill him yourself without any problem. So next thing we'll talk about, oh, by the way, any questions so far? Okay, no questions. So next thing we are going to discuss what can you actually kill in a combat CovOps, because basically, well, it is T2 ship, T2 frigate. It is pretty expensive comparing to T1 frigate, and you can ask yourself, and you would be totally right to ask it, okay, I'll spend like 30 million for the ship, well, approximately, more or less. What real advantage will it give it to me? What will I be able to engage in this ship? And the correct answer would be that you can, in a combat CovOps, you effectively can kill any T1 frigate in the game. There are some smallish exceptions, but really, you can kill any T1 frigate in game. From T2 lineup, you can easily kill stealth bombers, which will occasionally try to gank you because, well, they think you're defenseless. Mostly you will be able to kill interceptors that will get close to you when they will decide that it's very easy to gank you, because, well, yeah, you are in CovOps, so what can you do to me? And the correct answer would be you can kill him. So from T2 lineup, as I said, stealth bombers, interceptors, both fleet and combat ones, and trust me, you can kill combat interceptors in combat CovOps. I think personally I've killed 3 Tyrannuses, which is considered often the best combat interceptor in game. Against assault frigates, it is a very hard bargain. Basically, they have a very high tank. So, and if they active tank, you will have just problems really breaking that tank. It's not that you are not dominating the fight. More or less, if it's a close range assault frigate, you will be able to to choose your engagement range, and you will be able to hit him pretty decently. But the problem will be that you will have serious troubles killing him fast, because combat co-ops, well, any co-ops frigate is not that cap rich. Capacity is not that high initially, so you usually have to finish your fight within a minute. Against a T1 frigate, it is not a problem. Against an assault frigate, especially if it is an active tank one, it is might be a big problem. That's why assault frigates is not that impossible, but might be a hard target. People often also ask about destroyers, because, well, nowadays destroyers are very nice ships, and people like to fly, everything except Coercer. And I would say that, yes, you can kill destroyers, which usually just shred T1 frigates and some assault frigates just to pieces. For example, you can kill thrashers with it. I mean close range autocannon fit thrashers. You can kill sabers with it. It can be pretty, well, you need to be quick on the reactions and very careful with piloting, but nothing really impossible to do. So that's the list of your target. If we'll talk about faction frigates and navy frigates, it is also possible, but it heavily depends on the situation. Personally, I've tried it twice against a Daredevil and one Dremel, and unfortunately both times I've lost. Not without fight, and I had some chances, but unfortunately these chances were not enough. But again, you can try and do it, because I think it is possible. Against Navy frigates like Imperial Navy Slicer or what else? Firetail, it is totally possible. They are not that tougher than T1 frigates. That is your main list of targets. You will not want to engage cruisers or battle cruisers. They will just shred you to pieces. Okay, now to the questions. Cheetah is suboptimal because of mixed high slots, I guess. Not really. Cheetah is okay. Can someone link it, please? Okay, thank you. You have pretty nice bonuses to Cheetah, but it has 4 mid slots. Personally, I have nothing against it, but I would say that better CovOps frigates for solo PvP is these that have 5 mid slots, because with 4 mid slots you have to, you will fit Afterburners, Cram and Web, and 4th mid slot you have to choose either it will be a second Web or a Tracking Disruptor, and trust me, you will just love very much to have both of these modules, and that's why usually Buzzard or Helios are used in this setup. But of course you can still fly Cheetah, it's totally fine, and 4 mid slots is 4 mid slots. Turlo, Anathema is also totally fine, since first it's Samar, it's black, it's nice looking, and second it can dish out pretty nice DPS. I think more than Buzzard can, for example. So it is a pretty nice combat co-ops. And Anathema has a much lower problems with capacitor than other frigates due to its natural hull bonus. Okay, back to the questions. Liam Nestor asks, why not replace one of the Helios guns by CovOps since it got a drone? Yes, it has a drone, but only one, unfortunately, so main DPS comes from its guns. If you drop one gun, your DPS will be seriously crippled. But yes, you can, of course, it's not a problem. Yeah, Niskron has a very good point. Unfortunately, nowadays, from destroyers, coercers are bad for PvP and solo PvP because they have only one mid slot. It just makes them, well, extremely bad. In fleet, you can fly them. It's not a problem since coercers are very good in dealing pretty nice DPS comparing to other destroyers. But usually until they will have some buff, which was promised to us, coercers are not very good. Parabellum El Phantasmo asks, what about the Corm with its one low slot? Well, it's not a problem. Because Cormorant has a nice amount of mid slots, so you fit tank, tackle in there and use this one low slot either for damage control or for a module that will increase your DPS, depending. Gecko Shardani asks a very good question. Why a second web? It was one of the reasons why Combat CovOps is so great. That you can actually fit full tackle and plus second web. It all comes down to range selection of your fight. If you can select a range at which you fight and keep your enemy at that range, basically you are doing a very good job and more or less you are tactically winning the fight. Different ships have different speeds, so some of the ships can have speed higher than yours, like a Rifter will probably be faster than some of the CovOps frigates with its afterburner running, so you cannot dictate the range of the engagement. And at the same time, if you have second web, you are slowing your opponent down, like you are reducing his speed by 85%, 85 to 90 approximately. So it is a very, very big deal, and it effectively means that he cannot change range, and you select the range at which you will be shooting him. Like an example, if you have in your guns loaded long range ammo and he has short range, if you can keep him within your firing range but outside of his, it effectively means that you are hitting him and he can do nothing to you, which means that you are winning. And if you cannot keep the speed and keep the range and he will be able to close to you, he might be winning because short range ammo have much higher damage than long range one. That's why second web is so important. Why tracking disruptor is so important? It is important because CovOps frigates have smaller tanks than usual T1 and T2 ships. That's why you need some kind of EVO to reduce the incoming damage. That's why usually you use the tracking disruptor to reduce incoming this tracking disruptor and your range control to reduce the damage that you are taking from your opponent. Parabellum asks, Stasis and Scram, right? Not sure what you are referring to. Please, well, rephrase. Liam Nesta asks, the drone pretty useless? No, because ship has a pretty nice drone damage bonus. Basically you have, well, at level 5 you'll have 1.5 drone effectively, if you are fielding hobgoblins, and it's, well, I think it's pretty nice. Irfan Thomas asks, can I ask what the best skill is for increasing your CPU output? Yeah, electronics is your answer. Liam Nesta asks, on the fit linked in your Google Doc, why does the Helios use the an optimal range script for the tracking disruptor and not the other CovOps? We'll talk about it when we will be discussing the fit, which is like in a couple of minutes. Okay, any more questions? Okay, here is the link, Google Doc with the fits for combat CovOps frigates. Let's check it out. Okay, now let's get to fits and, well, usual tactics of fitting combat co-opses. There are basically two ideas that can be implemented in fitting a co-ops. You can either fit it for range control and for long range guns, or you can fit it with short range guns and hope that your tracking disruptor will work pretty well against your opponent and will be able to reduce the incoming DPS by using tracking script disruption and orbiting close to your enemy. Usually I prefer to have long range setups because if you have short range setups, you might have problems fighting ships that have a tracking bonus like Rifter or Imperial Navy Firetail. And if you have a good long range setup, you don't really give a damn about his guns. You just, well, basically outrange him. So you should not be taking any damage like at all during the fight. Another point to fit for long range is that if for any reason fight doesn't go on your way and into your favor, you can easily disengage because you have the range control and you are almost at the edge of your scram range and his, basically. So it's a bit easier to run. Good example would be when his, well, friend lands on grid with you and you see that you will not be able to kill that first target in time to be able to, well, kill then the second target or run away. So you just use your 2 webs to gain enough range and warp out. So we'll first talk about Helios. Helios is my favorite combat co-ops. I fly it, well, pretty often. So now High slots, two long range, it's a long range Helios, two long range guns, 125mm rail guns. In mid slots, two webs, scram afterburner and tracking disruptor. So the answer to the why do I load optimal range script is just because you should be fighting at range. In any long range setup, against the usual T1 frigate, you should be approximately at 7.5 kilometers from your target. It is the best range, especially if you are using tracking disruption. It will make sure that you will not die to its guns. In low slots, as you can see, damage control, micro auxiliary power core to increase the power grid, and the damage module. In rigs, two damage rigs. Why damage rigs but not rate of fire rigs? It is important to remember that these ships have problems with capacitor. That's why you usually fit for rigs that will not increase the capacitor consumption on the ship. Couple of things that you might want to change in this fit. First one is you can switch damage control for another max tab. Basically, it will increase your DPS pretty significantly, but it will decrease your tank quite severely too. So personally, I prefer to have at least some tank, since Galenta ships have a lot of structure instead of that increase of DPS. Second thing is that you can upgrade auxiliary power core to T2 version and fit 150mm railguns. They will also give you some DPS increase, but tracking will be a little smaller. So it really depends and comes down to personal preference. But more or less, this is the standard setup that I fly, and it proved itself more than once. Any questions regarding Helios? Lamb Nesta changed the DC with overdrive. Not sure why. What will it give you? You also already have two webs, which means that you will be choosing the combat range. So why increase speed further? You cannot speed tank the combat co-ops. It doesn't have enough speed advantage to really speed tank. A long range setup totally relies on range and E-war tanking. In good engagement against a T1 frigate, your shields will not drop below 1/2 of their value. As you can understand, it's just ridiculous. You take almost no damage and you kill your opponent, maybe two of them. Okay, next one is Cheetah. As someone mentioned, Cheetah have a pretty nice bonus to optimal range, which is usually a bonus to artilleries. So this is again a long range Cheetah setup. Cheetah has 3 high slots, which means that it can cloak while being PvP fed. As you can see, more or less standard artilleries, 4 mid slots, so only 1 web, and in low slots again, auxiliary power core, damage control, gyro stabilizer. But Cheetah has some additional power grid problems. So one rig is dedicated to power grid and second one is damage one. Just for the sake of being here, we have a short range Cheetah setup. As you can see, short range of course requires less power grid, so you can actually fit 2 damage modules in low slots. It does increase your damage output somewhat, but not that high. For example, fit with Helios that I've linked can do approximately, with my skills and a couple of extremely cheap damage implants, it can do overheated approximately 110 DPS. With more damage oriented setups it can be 150 DPS, which is pretty nice, considering that no one will expect you to shoot at him at all. And just compare the long range Cheetah in the same situation, will do like 75 DPS, and autocannon 1 will do I think a bit more, 110 approximately. But short range setup, as you can understand, will have to get close and will have to take fire from enemy, while long range Helios will not really suffer from enemy DPS like at all. Krilas asks, putting the cloak between the guns is for overheating, right? Yes, you are totally correct. Akane, no, heat damage does not overlap from last slot on the rack to the first. For some time it was in that way, but I don't know, was it just broken or it was silent decision from developers, but it does not overlap nowadays. So that's why fitting guns on 2 opposite sides will not get you overlapping heat, and will actually decrease the heating damage to these modules. Yeah, so it was a pretty open question for some time, because some people told it overlaps, some that it doesn't, but seems like additional tests showed that it doesn't. Finally, you can check either, I think Seamus Donahue did research on this one, or on Failheap Challenge there should be a thread about it too, so feel free to check them for additional information. Okay, now let's get to next ship, Buzzard. Buzzard can cloak since it has 3 high slots. So you put 2 rocket launchers, you have 5 mid slots, which you use for, usual stuff, as you can guess. Only 2 low slots, so damage control and micro auxiliary power core, and 2 damage rigs. As you can see, Buzzard is not that DPS friendly comparing to Helios or comparing to close range Cheetah. Another problem is that it has a damage only to kinetic damage. So while it does have its advantages, like being able to work cloaked, it's not that effective. Basically, with the usual setup, you'll have around 80 DPS with 2 rocket launchers. I think you can try to remove the cloak and put a gun in there, but it will not really increase your DPS that much. Bobby Rush asks why the afterburner first, not 2S. Not sure what you are trying to ask. Please rephrase the question. I think all afterburners are T2 in my FITs, because unlike MVDs, afterburners give straight speed difference between T1 and T2 versions. So if you only can, you should try fit T2 as often as possible. Really? Cheetah has T1? That's just... I'm bad at this game. Yeah, it's T1. Probably a mistake, since a long range have T2 afterburner, and short range should have T2 afterburner too. Thanks for noticing. I will update the fits, but I think it's the only one fit that has T1 afterburner actually. Okay, now to the last ship, Anathema. Please link the ship in class.uni. No, not Cheetah, but Anathema, MR1. Thank you. Okay, as you can see on Anathema, I've added again 2 fits, and one is using rockets, as it have a rocket bonus, and second one is using pulse lasers. First, because, well, pulse lasers are very nice looking comparing to rockets, and second reason is that Anathema have a pretty nice capacitor bonus, so it can use lasers pretty nicely. Another reason is that you actually can get more DPS from laser Anathema than from rocket one. Usual rocket fit will give you approximately 80 DPS with, well, more or less okay skills, not level 5, but, well, more or less okay. And medium pulse laser Anathema can give you, while still being cap stable, can give you up to 100 DPS, overheated of course, with short range crystals. So as you can see, it is quite nice, and both fits can work. In all other senses, fits are totally similar to each other. Rocket one is considered more of a long range setup, and Pulse one often is considered more short range setup, but it really doesn't matter much. You can try to be at bigger range with medium pulse lasers, just because with lasers you can switch crystals instantly and start shooting from big distance, then close in, just run away while continue shooting. It's totally up to you. Yeah, rocket name should be changed too. I know it. Yeah, not Foxfire. Nowadays they are Inferno. I haven't taught that class for 8 months from now, so you can find some old names over there. Okay, any questions regarding the fits? Kojendur asks, sorry if mispronounced, why bring a cover-top scanning frig into a combat situation when there are other better alternatives? We'll talk about it in a minute when we will discuss tactics, but trust me, it has a very solid base on it. Lord Khalid asks, have you used the Anathema? Not really. I tend to fly Helios, but I think Anathema will work too. Turloch asks, why you ever stick on a Trimark for some extra tank or just stick with the damage rig? I would stick with the damage rig because of several reasons. First, Trimarks increase percent of your armor, and without any plates, your armor value will not be that high, so Trimark rigs will not be that effective. And second reason is that despite having combat bonus, it's not that high DPS ship. So usually you would want to take any DPS you can from the ships. Morbin asks, giving up the cloak seems like a big disadvantage. Is it? Doesn't it make it harder to choose your target? Yes and no at the same time. We'll discuss it in a moment when we will get to tactics. But question is very good and it should be answered. Nis, up to you. But well, feel free to send me your investigations. For now, I'm pretty sure that it doesn't. But does it really mean that you have to understand that it's chance-based. Second, that it can be passed through all medium slots. So, not sure if it's a totally valid point, especially if you take only one experiment. But then again, CCP could change it in one of the recent patches. Totally possible. So it might overlap again. I wouldn't, bet that it's not possible. Usually people, did a lot of tests, like to mitigate any chance spacing, like I think from 10 to 50 tests on full rack of guns, and usually tests showed that guns on both sides were less damaged in the long range tests than in big amount of tests than the middle ones. So I will not argue. So until the recent time, I'm pretty sure it did not overlap. Now maybe we need to recheck. Corinder, it's not about overheating class because CCP quietly can change these things, and they often do not announce these changes, so people just have to figure it out. Trust me, there are a lot of such changes, each patch, and usually if you are not deep into this kind of thing, like if you do not do a lot of PvP or you do not do a lot of missioning, you will not notice it. Like recently, CCP nerfed the income from static plexes, 2 from 10s. It was not announced, but since I'm usually running and fighting there, I've noticed that, well, loot tables were alternated, though no real announcement was made. Okay, any more questions? If not, we will continue with tactics. Okay, so tactics. At the first, well, why should we use combat co-opses and why are they so great? As I hope I've proven to you, usually solo fit combat co-ops is better than, well, PvP wise is better than T1 frigates. So, and you can ask yourself, okay, you are sitting at belt, uncloaked, and you see a Priority Rifter. It's not flashy, but, well, he has negative security status, warp into this belt. If you'll see, for example, a Navy frigate, what will he do? He might engage, or he might think, okay, you are in Navy frigate, you are better than me. Well, not better than me, but your ship is more expensive, so you might kill me. I will not engage you. And at the same time, what will he think if you will be there in CovOps frigate? Most of all, he will think that, oh, okay, another noob in from uni who doesn't really know how to cloak himself, I can gank him and get some nice loot out from you. Like, because CovOps frigates tend to fit, for example, pretty expensive cloaks, CovOps ones, which cost around 5 million, and some people tend to fit sister combat probe launchers, which cost with probes approximately 40-50 million apiece. So it is a very, well, usually it would be just a, well, present, like, I don't know, birthday present for that Rifter pilot. Yeah, this one, sister expanded probe launcher. So most of the time he will just engage you, hoping that even if you have some backup, he will be able to kill you in time. I think, well, at this moment you can easily prove him wrong and kill him instead. So basically it is a very bait friendly ship. It is very, very easy to bait people to engage you. And not only some random pirates, for example, but also a war target. I'm pretty sure that, and know for sure, that our war targets do fly T1 frigates in the Aldrat to Dodixie pipe. I'm pretty sure that when they will see CovOps uncloaked, slow boat into a gate, they will gauge. And, well, it's very easy to kill them. Like especially two combat co-opses on two other side of the gate, and second can support first one. You will definitely have no problems killing any T1 frigate, and probably you will be able to kill a T2 assault frigate too. Just, well, be careful about it. Corbin, yes, well, at least our previous UMED do fly frigates, and combat co-ops uncloaked is so juicy target for any pilot, like for any pilot, that it will engage without any hesitation just because he thinks you are defenseless. Not many people know about the possibilities of combat co-opses. That's why not that many YouTube videos can be found. Basically, I think there are two main videos about it, and usually it's not that, well, famous. So you can really take advantage of it. Another thing is that since these ships are so bait friendly, they are extremely good for university especially, because, well, in LowSec we are operating at no, not read, don't shoot, so we cannot engage a lot of people first. And with such a clear ability of combat co-ops is to dictate range of the engagement and, well, win, and start dictating range after you've been engaged, it is very, very easy to bait people in LowSec and to kill them. So, answering two questions that were asked before, giving up the cloak seems like a big disadvantage. Is it? Not really, because yeah, it is nice to have ability to cloak, but usually, if enemy is flying T1 frigate, you want to be uncloaked. You want him to see you. You want him to think of you as a total noob that made a mistake. It will just, well, good pilot will of course think, okay, it might be some kind of a trick because, well, he is uncloaked but no like objects near him, so he's not decloaked. Well, accidentally, then he'll check your guns, he'll see that you have guns or rocket launchers fitted, and he'll think, what the hell, might be some trap. And to, well, make it easier for him to decide, why do you need that cloak? You don't need it. You have the DPS to kill that frigate, and you have to be, well, looking dumb. And, well, that's why cloak is good, but not mandatory. As for cogender, phrase, why bring a covert ops scanning freak into a combat situation when there are other better alternatives? I will ask you, what alternatives? From T1 frigates? Usually combat co-ops can kill any T1 frigate and a lot of well, Navy frigates and interceptors. So as a excellent bait frigate, you will have problems with well, assault frigates. But to fly assault frigates well, you need to have a pretty decent amount of skills, while to fly combat co-ops, usually all you need is to have T2 guns, because you don't have to fit tank, you don't have to fit well, any fancy modules, like you can easily downgrade the fit to have T1 guns, T1 meta webs, and meta tracking disruptor. It's not a problem, it's just you can fit T2 variants, but they are totally not mandatory. So this ship not only bait friendly, but it is extremely easy to fit. Turloch asks, when you are baiting them into attacking you in LowSec, what do you do? Like, do you hang around slow boating to the gate or fly around some belts for giggles? Mostly belts and giggles. Let them see you and then warp to a nearby belt within D-scan range, like you are scared of them, because on gate they will not engage you, because they will have to take GCC, and it means they will not engage. So belts and planets is your obvious choice. I would say that a lot of pirates tend to think that E-UNI are noobs. So warping to a planet might be too hard for them to figure it out. That's why pick a belt that's, if possible, that's only one belt in this direction, and warp there at like 30k or something. Warping at 0 is not a very good idea, mostly because there will be probably belt threats, and you would want some distance between you and them, because while in a fight you can tank, well, besides your target, you can tank approximately 2 NPC cruisers without no problem. I would say that the preferred way to do it is to, well, get some distance between you and the NPCs. When you will be at 20, 30k, just like let him burn towards you and let him engage. Let him feel, well, winning already, and then just kill him. So, to the tactics. How to bait people if they are not war targets? Usually, as I said, you show them that you are in CovOps frigate, and then you warp to a belt, and just, well, wait for them to engage. Another option is to warp yourself to a belt and start checking D-scan and looking for people in system. If you see that there are some frigates in system and in local, you see that they have less than zero security status, it's, well, more or less it's your, well, best target to wish for. So you start checking D-scan to find out where they are, and then just, well, warp there and play that you are a total noob, which accidentally warped and forgot to turn his cloak on. Trust me, because this ship tends to be, well, often expensively fit, people even with positive security status might come for you, just because they think you are an easy target and easy kill for some nice loot. So that's kinda easy and easy to implement and easy to do tactics in low sec. In null sec, of course, it's a bit different since you can engage first, and well, but it will work in the same way. It doesn't really matter. Just well, look stupid and, well, kill them all. In 0-0, of course, fit with covert ops cloak fitted will have the advantage because they will be able to avoid gate camps while running solo, and in the needed time they will just decloak and try to, well, play an extremely stupid ship that should be blown up. Gecko Shardani asks, how are we allowed to fly CovOps during wars according to the WarSop? Yes, we can. Nothing forbids you from doing it. Be careful because, well, try to pick your fights. Do not try to fight solo against assault frigates until you get at least a couple of kills against easier targets, but basically, why not? I'll try to find, just 1 minute, I'll try to find a very funny kill I've made in Helios against a very good PvP corp, Noir Mercs. It's another thing that will just which makes combat CovOps great. It's not only fun ship to fly and to kill your opponents, it very, very seriously cripples your opponent morale. Because if you kill a war target in such a way, usually this war target will be laughed at, joked at, and, well, might get into serious troubles just because, well, yeah, you've been killed by a CovOps. Just a second. Having no low sec experience, is it common to be engaged by solo frigates? Yes, it is pretty common, though you need to check local that there are no other pilots from the same corp, since they will try to get to help him. Usually you will be able to kill your target in time, even with the frigate in system from the corp mate, but you really need to be careful about it, and you really need to know what you're doing. Check this example. It was actually a 2vc1 fight against two ships from the same corp, and I've killed them both. The main thing was that one of them was faster than the second one, so I've warped at range. They both warped, burned to me, but since first one was much faster, there was a pretty nice range difference between first and second ship when first engaged, so I was able to kill first ship separately and then finish off the second without no problem at all. Yeah, you will be engaged by anything that thinks that it can win, and against a CovOps, even a starting pilot in a Rift will think that he will be able to win. Okay, unfortunately I cannot find the skill that I wanted to link, but anyway, you will get a lot of tears from your enemies and from your target. This particular pilot was, really pissed off, and comments were not that friendly to him on his corp kill board. Afterwards he convoed me and asked really how did I do it. I've explained to him, and he was pretty happy that he had something to show to his corp, really. Okay, next one. As in some guides, now we will talk about friends and foes. Friends, anything really. You are a solo ship, so you don't have any real friends to help you out, but of course if you'll have a wolf pack of frigates, it would be a nice change, because as I said, you can control the range of the engagement and keep yourself safe. So in theory, if you have some backup, you can easily bait an assault frigate into engaging you, and then just keep him tackled for as long as needed for your gang to arrive. Usually for frigates 1 minute is totally enough, so you will be able to just keep him there until your support will arrive, and you will be able to kill him. As for the enemies, there are two kinds of enemies of combat CovOps threats. First one is kiting ships. As you can understand, your enemy should be within your web range for you to really be on top of the situation. So if you see that your enemy is MVD fit and has long range guns like artilleries or rail guns, you must be very careful about that enemy. And there are ways to try to kill him still. It's from more advanced tactics, because you really need to first tracking disrupt him for optimal range, make him come closer, then catch him into your two overheated webs, then switch to your tracking disruption to tracking disruption, and orbit him at range at which your guns will be hitting him, and his guns will not be able to track you because you are E-warring him. So it's kinda possible, but it's not that easy, trust me. Second type of natural enemies of combat CovOps is rocket ships, because, well, rockets, frigates can, with faction rockets, can shoot up to 8-9 kilometers, depending on skills. And if they have T2 rockets, they will be easily able to hit up to 13k or even more on range bonus ships like Hawk, for example. So you should be very careful about rocket ships. It's not that it's impossible, but you have to understand that your E-War is against turret-based ships, at least for now, until the tracking disruptors will get a boost against missiles, and rockets give a damn about neither your tracking disruption, neither your range. If you are within rocket range, they will hit you for full damage. Well, almost full damage, since rockets tend to rely on other aspects to deal DPS, like your speed. So these two groups are main enemies. They can be countered or killed, anyway, but you need to be careful. Any other ships like frigates and destroyers are your, easy prey for you, more or less, so feel free to bait them and kill them. As for the tactics of the fighting, if your target is not flashy, you should allow him to shoot at you first, and usually they will do it without no problem. So let him close to you. When he'll be at like 15 kilometers, start targeting, but do not engage, of course. Just make sure that you have a lock when he will engage you. You will have to have your afterburner overheated to gain range or to gain speed as quickly as possible after he'll engage. So when he'll engage, put both of your web scrams on him, your guns, and just turn your afterburner for one overheated cycle to gain range if you need, if you are in long range setup, or to start orbiting if you are at close range setup. At this point, it all comes down to, time that you will need to kill him, because it's not that much that he can do. Against usual short-range T1 frigates, that's all you need really to know. You just need to sit outside of their gun range, which is usually with T2 ammunition long range. It will be approximately 7k. Since you will be tracking disrupting them for range, it will be reduced, but still I would suggest sitting approximately 7 kilometers away from them in long range setups. Against destroyers such as thrashers, this range should be increased to 9 kilometers, because thrashers have a very hefty bonus to range, so they usually can't shoot up to 14 kilometers with long range ammo. So even under tracking disruption, you must remember that you should be sitting at around 9 kilometers. It means that you should have your scram overheated all the time during the whole fight, because you might have some problems with dictating the range. So just make sure that you will not let that enemy slip out from your, killing hand. One probably final note about tactics is that usually I would say that as soon as you got into your preferred range, you can stop your afterburner and use keep at range command, because orbiting will increase the tracking, and since if you are fitting long range guns, you will want tracking to be as low as possible, because at your preferred range, like 7+k, your enemy will not be able to hit you at all, so his tracking doesn't really matter. all that matters is your tracking, and you will want to keep it as low as possible to hit as high damage as possible. Against like thrashers that will sometimes be able to shoot at you even at 9 kilometers, you might want to keep orbiting him just to reduce his chance of hitting you, because thrashers hit extremely hard. That's more or less everything about fighting tactics. Ask your questions about tactics. Oh, actually, since it's the end of lecture part, feel free to ask questions. I'm opening up the Mumble. Feel free to ask any questions regarding the class or well, anything else PvP wise probably. Thank you all for listening. I hope you've enjoyed it, and I really hope that some of you will take that CovOps frigate for a spin and will kill some war targets. Trust me, the tiers are just priceless. Okay, so my Mumble is open. Feel free to talk. Desi Morley asks, is a Hound good solo, or is it more of a ship to choose targets wisely? Hard to answer, really. It is good, and if you check out the YouTube video I've linked, you can see that people do fly Hounds and do kill stuff in it, so it's not a problem. Nakor, you're welcome, but one of the great things about combat CovOps frigates is that you do not need a lot of SPs. All you need is frigate 5 and CovOps frigates at 3 or 4. Krelas, trust me, frigates to 5 is very short train. When you get to like assault frigates 5 or command ships 5, then you'll understand what is a long train. Courage, gender, it's up to you whether you like to fly the ship or not. If you think that you are good in any other frigate, feel free to fly it. It's a personal choice. I fly a lot of stuff. T1 frigates, combat co-opses, all assault frigates, all 8 of them. So, and of course, well, usually assault frigates are better. But then again, will a T1 frigate engage assault frigate? Will T1 war target frigate engage your assault frigate? No, it will never engage it. Will it engage T1 frigate? Depends. Might, yes, might not. Will it engage a CovOps? 100% sure it will. So it is totally possible to use it to kill your opponents. And yes, Liam has a very good point. It's crazy and fun at the same time. And I would say that in current EVE you might get more kills in CovOps, combat CovOps, than you'll get in a T1 frigate solo. Believe it or not. From personal experience. Another example of advantage of combat CovOps is that with a bit of thinking, you can engage 2 VC1 against 2 T1 frigates. If you are flying a T1 frigate yourself, it will be a very, very hard battle today to get, and in combat CovOps it will be pretty easy to do.